Welcome to our 50th episode of the Sober Life Rocks podcast. I am so excited because today's guest is somebody who, as she wrote the title of one of her books, is from Wham to Woo. Stay tuned to hear all about it.
Welcome to the Sober Life Rocks podcast. You may have made the decision not to drink alcohol, or at the very least, not at work-related events. Whether you've never been a drinker, are in recovery, or made a health-related decision, we see you, and you are not alone. In today's world, networking, socializing, and celebrations often happen over drinks, and the struggle can be real. Through this podcast, we're changing that narrative. We're here to create a community where individuals like you, who choose not to drink or drink less, can find camaraderie, support, and practical advice.
My name is Margie Schaller, and I'm the host of the Sober Life Rocks podcast. My guest today is a powerhouse of creativity, wellness, and authenticity, Janey Lee Grace. You might recognize her voice from her years as a co-presenter on BBC's Radio 2 with Steve Wright in the afternoon, where she entertained millions with her signature warmth and wit. But before she was a radio personality, Janey was a professional singer, touring and recording with legends like George Michael, Wham, and Boy George. Today, she's a best-selling author, sober living advocate, and founder of the Sober Club, where she helps people live their best lives without alcohol. She's also the host of the popular Alcohol-Free Life podcast and a go-to expert on all things holistic and natural living. Whether she's on stage, on air, or online, Janey is all about living imperfectly natural and unapologetically real. Please welcome the one and only Janey Lee Grace.
Thank you. That's a lovely introduction. Thank you very much. Great to be with you.
That's very easy to do because you have lived a rich and full life, my word.
Yeah, I wear quite a lot of hats, for sure.
Well, Janey, I would just love to get to know you personally. I'd love to know sort of like, what was your life growing up like? You know, just humanize us a little bit, because when we hear all of these things you've done, it's hard to imagine you as a real person. So help us know, like, what was Janey like as a little girl?
Well, my beginnings, in inverted commas, were really quite humble. I grew up in a council estate, didn't have any money. I did know from a very early age that I was passionate about showing off. Basically, I kind of took myself off to Sunday school when I was about 5 because a little girl who lived on my street said, "Oh, well, if you go to this Sunday school, if you sing, they'll give you free sweets." And I thought, well, that sounds like a fair exchange. So off I went to Sunday school and got up and sang regularly and got my free sweets, which they then switched to free books, which was even better.
Okay.
So from quite a young age, I liked, singing and dancing, and I've absolutely no idea where it came from. My parents didn't quite know what to do with me. It was not anything in their world at all. But I was sort of, I kind of just naturally kind of creative and wanted to do stuff. It was as if I was born that way. It really was. I'm really quite interested in the whole nature versus nurture thing, because I don't know where my drive came from, but it was there for sure. And so then I got the opportunity to go and do performance arts at university, and that's really, when everything took off. Really, I got the opportunity to be in, just outside London and studying dance and drama and music and all the rest of it. And then from there, I became a pop singer. Not instantly, but bit by bit, I made my way into the kind of music industry. So that's how it all kicked off for me. Nothing was given to me ever. I had to work really hard for absolutely everything. I had to make my own opportunities. I had to go after what I really wanted. I talk about all of this in the memoir From Wham to Woo. And I think actually when I'd written it, it was only when I'd written it, I kind of looked back and realized, wow, somebody said to me in an interview about the book, they said, reading all these points in your life where something happened and you wrote to someone or you did this or you did that, and then the next thing happened, and then you got the gig with Wham, and then you got the gig with Steve Wright, and then you did this and then you did that. You're a real hustler, aren't you? And I said, no, absolutely not. I'm absolutely not a hustler. And they said, you must be really confident and a real hustler. I said, no, it wasn't that at all. I was just absolutely determined and absolutely passionate about the intention I'd set. And if I didn't go after it, it definitely wouldn't happen. So it was drive and determination, I suppose.
I had a boss one time tell me that nobody was as interested in my life as I was.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
Yeah.
if I wanted to get ahead, I had to be
Yeah.
the one to put the accelerator down and get
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly that. And
Yeah.
and now I just one of my kind of mantras is go after what it is you want. If you know you want it, go after it. You got nothing to lose. I mean, you might not get it, but you definitely won't get it if you don't try. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's easy to say, but I think for many of us, like, the scary part is facing that rejection or facing that shame. And for me, anyhow, most of my life, I didn't have any other tools to deal with that besides drinking. So,
No, absolutely, yeah. And
yeah.
also the other part of that is that, for many people, I mean, I now realize, in the work I do as a coach, I realize that for many people, they really genuinely don't know what they want. And for a lot of women, they've completely got lost along the way. They've been so busy supplying what everybody else wants. They've been so busy sort of people pleasing and caring for someone else and doing what everybody else wants that they've absolutely lost all sight of what they want for themselves. I see it all the time. It's really interesting. And then sometimes, you'll sort of say, but what do you want for you? And they'll go, oh, I just want my mum to be better. Or, no, I said, what do you want for you? And then they'll burst into tears because nobody's asked them that question since they were probably about 8.
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about role modeling recently because, my mom was an alcoholic and I watched her deal with those moments by doubling down on taking care of everybody else and then dealing with the stress by drinking. So what
Yeah.
was your role modeling like?
You mean for me, look at who did I look up to, as it were? Or
Well,
do you
yeah, I
mean
mean,
when I was a parent?
no, as a child
As
or
a child, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate in that my parents didn't drink too. Oh, my dad did drink, I think. My mum didn't drink much. But there were all kinds of issues. Both my parents had mental illness. My mum had very severe mental illness, and so I never really had a sense of security growing up. And now, the work that I do in family constellations, I can look back and I can absolutely see um, just how insecure I was, and I can absolutely see how that led to. On the one hand, it saved me because I was so unbelievably fearful, and because I had no safety net, and I mean no safety net. No one was going to come get me if anything went bad. I mean, my parents didn't even drive, so because of that, it meant that I was a little cautious, at least to start with. So I didn't actually start drinking too early, and when I did, I didn't massively overdo it for a good number of years. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that kind of caution. That caution also meant that I never took drugs, even though I was in the music industry where there were drugs everywhere. I never tried a single, bit of anything ever. I never even tried a cigarette. Not because I was holier than thou, but because I was terrified, absolutely terrified of being out of control, because I knew that nobody would be there for me if anything went bad. So on the one hand, that sort of lack of security had that sort of silver lining of keeping me a little more stable than perhaps I would have been. So yeah,
Well,
I didn't really have any positive role models, really.
Let's dig in a little bit to that your drinking history. So you said that you really didn't drink that much until you got more into the music
No.
industry, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I mean, alcohol was everywhere, but I didn't massively overdo it, thank God. My drinking ramped up really when my kids were young, when I was unbelievably unbelievably busy. I had a ton of stuff going on. I was, working on the radio. I had 4 young kids. We were home educating 2 of them. I was doing a TV show. Um, we had a reasonable amount of money because we were both successful. And that was the done thing. You bought, in inverted commas, good wine. I would kid myself that I was choosing organic biodynamic wine. I mean, absolute BS now. Now I look back at it. But that was the deal, and then as life went on and I was so unbelievably busy, if I could get, what I considered a bit of adult time, me time, if the kids were looked after for an hour, well, that was my license to go and have some self-care, which, I saw that as my glass of Sauvignon or whatever. So that's really when it ramped up, because I saw it as my self-care. And obviously society supports that big time. We're told, oh, well, if you're a mum and you're celebrating something, well, you can't possibly do that without Prosecco, and I mean, yeah, we know, don't we, the way society backs us up on that. So yeah, that was when it really, really ramped up, and it went on for, years and years and years. I would have the odd period where I'd stop for a bit, but mostly it was just kind of drinking every day. It would still have been classed as entirely normal, though. I mean, I didn't ever have a rock bottom moment. I didn't have hangovers. I never took a day off work. I would never drive after I'd been drinking. So I was, to all intents and purposes, a completely normal drinker. Crazy, isn't it? Absolutely crazy. How can it be normal to throw poison down your neck every night? But that's what I was doing. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. One of the things that I hear a lot from people is this idea that, they drink because that's what everybody around them did, and that's how you sort of fit into the fabric of the people that you're with. So how was it that you managed to navigate those years in show business, not really partaking in the same way and not feeling as though you weren't part of?
Well, I did drink, but just I didn't overdo it. I was just I amazingly was able to sort of have a drink and then, not carry on and move on to loads more. Um, there were quite a lot of times when I felt not not part of the scene because I wasn't taking drugs.
Mm.
Um, that was quite tough. Depending on which band I was working with, it was more prevalent. It was more prevalent than others. Um, but I just kind of, I suppose I just got used to the fact that, you know, I didn't want to be in that scene. I mean, I really didn't. So,
I'm with you. I
there
was
were,
terrified.
yeah, I was just absolutely terrified of what would happen. And the honest truth is I did see people, really creative people kind of really lose their way, even just other backing singers. I'd see them perfectly okay, perfectly on top of their game. And then they'd take a load of coke and be completely, what's the word? Paranoid. Completely
Mm.
paranoid, convinced that they were singing flat or this was wrong or that was wrong. It was exhausting being around them. Just like, just stop it, just actually stop it. So yeah, so I did, I sometimes didn't feel part of that scene, but it didn't matter because I didn't really want to be. So
And then
that's
when
okay.
you moved into the sort of drinking, to reward yourself as a mom, was that with other people or was that more just on your own in your own house?
No, it varied. It was both with friends, with other mums. I was part of that mummy wine culture thing, definitely. But it was on my own as well. I saw it as my self-care.
Hmm.
So it was both. That's why it's so dangerous, really, because I would be kidding myself that, oh, well, I just will have a social drink if I go out with friends or if I go out for dinner. But actually, the reality was I'd be, if I got an opportunity to go round to the local wine bar at 5 o'clock in the afternoon because the kids were looked after, clearly I'd have to have a large glass then and then come
Right.
home and have more with dinner. And it I mean,
Right.
we see it all the time, don't we? It's just really insidious. It's really insidious how it creeps up on you.
So, and
Yeah.
I'm asking these questions because I feel as though what we do, whatever that thing is, becomes part of our identity, becomes
Mm,
part of who people know us as,
yeah. Yeah.
and who we know ourselves as. And so then when we make these big decisions in life, like I'm going to no longer do this or I'm going to start doing that, there's this period of time where we wrestle with both the relationships that we have and ourselves as to, well, that was who I was.
Oh yeah. The whole identity thing, I think, is it's a really important piece, and I don't think we're kind of prepared for it really when we quit alcohol. I think when we make this decision that we're going to quit the booze, and even in the early weeks, we're navigating all the firsts, all the new, and it's often an emotional roller coaster, and
Mhm.
there's a lot to navigate, there's a lot to deal with, but I'm not sure that we're prepared enough for the fact that actually we are stepping into a whole new identity. We really are. We're actually becoming someone else. Unfortunately, we're coming back to who we really are, who we're meant to be. And thankfully, I've never met anyone yet who preferred the old them. But it takes some getting used to, because you're kind of shedding a skin and you're kind of adapting and adjusting to, well, hold on a minute, who is this person? I don't really recognize this person, at
And
least
so
to
what was
start
that
with.
journey like? What was that journey
It
like for
was
you?
it was terrible, actually, because I was really not prepared for it. And not only that, I'd forgotten everything I knew about health and well-being. It's when I look back, it makes me laugh, but now I'm grateful, because it's what has made me a much better coach than I would otherwise have been if I'd sailed through it all and remembered all my own shtick, and actually got through it all easily. People would legitimately be able to say, well, yeah, but you don't understand, but actually I really do understand, because what actually happened for me was I didn't tell anyone I was doing this at all. um, I literally forgot every single piece of my own shtick that I talk about the whole time. I forgot to eat properly. I forgot about the vitamins and the nutrition. I forgot to properly take care of my mindset. I literally forgot. It was very bizarre. It was as if I was frozen in some kind of weird state. It was very strange. I knew that I didn't want to go back to drinking. Well, not straight away anyway. So I knew that I wanted to, there was something driving me to hang on in there. And yet I was not doing what I now tell people to do. I wasn't embracing it in any way. I wasn't focusing on the gains. I was actually racked with shame and guilt.
Mm,
Absolutely an emotional wreck of
mm,
just how the layers of guilt that came down on me. I never felt any guilt when I was drinking, but
mm,
when I stopped, man, did it land on me.
mm.
So I was kind of a mess for quite a while, actually. I managed to get through it, thank goodness, and I now realize I could have made it so much easier for myself. So, but I'm glad I had to go through it for that reason. But a lot of it was about not knowing who I was. I would literally find myself in a function or something, an event, because I didn't hole up. I carried on going to everything, but told no one. So I would find myself in this kind of event where it was as if I was observing myself and kind of really got no idea who this was. This isn't what I do in these kind of events. I'm the loud one. I'm the one screaming for another bottle of wine. I'm the one ordering this and ordering that and holding court. And suddenly I wasn't. I was this sort of quite quiet person, not quite sure what I was going to contribute, what I should drink, what time I should leave. It was just weird. It was so weird. And I'm quite a confident person. So it really helped me to see just how difficult it is for people who've been literally using alcohol for their confidence, or at least so they think. Doesn't really make us confident, but we think it does. So it was a very interesting revelation, until I was able to recognize, okay, this is all natural. It's all part of the process. It really is.
Mm,
You are
mm,
stepping into a new identity. The shoes that you're stepping into don't quite fit yet, but they will. They will. Give it time. They will. And once I was able to get some of the kind of tools in place, and I was able to put some positive practices in place, it got easier. And I can't tell you the moment that I felt as though I stepped into my new identity. It's a bit more subtle than that. It sort of happens along the way. But I do remember at one point kind of waking up one day and thinking, I don't recognize this feeling. that I'm having? What is this feeling? And then I eventually realized it was contentment, a very
Oh,
unusual word for me that I would not have been in my vocabulary probably since I was a kid. I had never, ever been content. I always wanted bigger, better, faster, more. Or, I was either miserable or I was, super happy or I was angry or I was busy or I was never content. That was so new for me, being able to just be able to be balanced and know how to bring myself back to balance.
mm,
It was quite remarkable, when I finally realized, okay, well, actually, so this is who I really am then.
hmm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I remember in those early days, oh, I struggled. I struggled with craving because, like you, I hadn't hit my bottom. I certainly had hit what other people would think was bad enough, but um, I wasn't ready to quit when I quit. But my parents gifted me with an intervention.
Ah, all right.
And I look
Okay.
back at it now, the struggles that I had with craving and with not knowing what to do with myself, and I'd be at home. I was divorced, and my kids would be at their dad's for the weekend, and I'd have this weekend yawning in front of me with no idea what to do with myself because I'd never made choices what to do with myself
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Um, and the struggles that you talk about, oh, it was so hard. But I look back at that now as a gift
Mm, mm,
because many people who have some sort of crisis hit where they get sober because of the crisis can point to that as their touchstone.
yeah.
I didn't have that, but it was through the struggle that I really had to do the work to
Yeah.
figure out
Exactly.
who is Margie and what do I think about things? How do I
Mm,
feel about
mm,
things? What do I want to do with my time? We
mm,
started out in the beginning talking about like identity, and I certainly didn't have anything except for centered around the drinking.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. It is fascinating how how much time and how much of our lives it consumes. The time we spend planning the drinking, actually going and buying the booze, actually drinking it, recovering from it, planning the next trip. It's all consuming. And when you take it away, there's a gap. There's a gap for sure. And some
Yeah.
people don't really know how they're going to fill that gap.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're going to do physically or emotionally, and actually we need stuff for both.
So now walk me forward. You've stopped drinking, and I know that you were hugely into holistic and healthy living. But when did you start to talk about your sobriety? Because you
Yeah.
said you didn't at first. And what did that look
No,
like?
no, I didn't. I mean, the irony, of course, is that, I had been doing work with holistic living for years and years. I'd written 5 books. I was, writing blogs. I was kind of queen of holistic living, if you like. And yet I was stepping around this big elephant in the room that was alcohol, which of course I saw as my imperfectly natural vice and perfectly okay. When it finally dawned on me that it's far from okay, um as I say, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't tell anyone. I think what happened was, over a period of time, as the light bulb came on, really, and I could suddenly see the light at the end of the tunnel, I started to feel better. I started to feel different. I started to get just those little glimmers of, oh, hold on a minute, perhaps there is something in this self-love piece that I talk about, because before I'd been talking about it, but only for other people, not for me. I was a Hay House author, constantly talking about self-love, but not for me. And suddenly I was able to kind of just get a glimpse of, oh, okay, so perhaps I can start to step into this new identity for me, right? So
Mm,
so when the light started to come on, as it were, I remember thinking, is this something I want to talk about? I want to share. And at first, it felt terrifying to do that. Just too huge, too personal. Didn't know if I could do it. And then I can't remember what changed. I think in fact, I no, I do know what changed. I went to see a friend who is a therapist, and I hadn't seen her in I don't know, 6 months or something like that. And I hadn't connected with her either. And I rocked up to see her and she said, there's something different about you. There's something completely different about you. Don't tell me, let me guess. Right. And I said, well, I've changed my hair or whatever. And she said, no, I'm not talking about your appearance. She said, I can see that you've lost a bit of weight. I can see that you've changed your hairstyle or whatever. She said, but it's not that, and she sort of stood back and then she said, your whole energy has changed. Everything about your energy has changed. She said, it's as if you've got an aura around you, a completely new energy. It was fascinating. And then she said, have you quit alcohol? And she drinks. This is someone who used to drink. It was one of the things we had in common. But she could see it. She could literally see a brighter energy around me. And I thought, oh wow, that's unbelievable. Because people do say to you, oh, you look better, you look younger, you look this, you look that. But she nailed it in that aura. And I just thought, God, how can I not share this? How can I not? I can't carry on writing articles about, organic skincare and cleaning your home without chemicals and eating this. And if I don't share this, I can't. So I did a YouTube video. I kind of did a coming out video when I was about 7 months sober. I was absolutely terrified. I was convinced that I was going to be absolutely lynched. But in actual fact, I got nothing but support, really. Lots of people kind of just messaged me privately and said, oh yeah, well, actually, I've been sober for years. So that was kind of what kickstarted it, really. And after that, I just thought, oh, blow it. It's my truth, and I'm just going to share it and take it or leave it.
Oh my gosh, that story is so beautiful. I love that. So today you actually now have a podcast about it. You have a coaching program about it. So how did you get from YouTube video coming out party to where you are now?
Yeah. So the YouTube video was about 7 months. I spent that first year really immersing myself in the world of sobriety, really. I went to mindful drinking festivals and meetups and all kinds of things, read every bit of Quit Lit that there was. And then at the beginning of the next year, so the beginning of my second year, I suppose, of sobriety, I decided to launch my podcast. And the reason for that was because I was really lucky in that, I was working in radio. I had access to lots of great guests, actually. So I figured, well, I've got nothing to lose. I'll just launch the podcast. If nobody listens, I'll leave it. But, fortunately they did. So I loved doing the podcast. And then and then halfway through that year, I suppose when I was a year and a half into sobriety, or a year and 8 months, I did a TEDx talk. And the TEDx talk was called Sobriety Rocks, Who Knew? And actually, it was the TEDx talk really that kickstarted everything else, because I'd forgotten that obviously when you do a TEDx talk, you're on camera because it's going to be put, everywhere. And I'd kind of prepped my talk for the camera, but I'd literally forgotten that there was going to be an audience in the room. I'd literally forgotten. So I rocked up on the day and there's like 250 people in this theater. And I suddenly thought, oh, wow, I've got to make eye contact with the people in the room. So it came as a little bit of a shock to me, but obviously I kind of, kicked into gear and did my thing. And then in the break, one after the other, people just came up to me and said, can I just take you aside? That really resonated with you've just shared my experience. And I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to do. You've literally just opened something up and I don't know what to do with it. I'm absolutely not going to AA. I'm not going to start talking to a doctor. I'm like you, I'm not at rock bottom, but I want to stop. And that's when I started the Sober Club, because I realized, there are just so many people. And I really wanted to be able to bring people together who were sober curious or already sober or whatever, but to bring it all in with the whole well-being picture. Because it took me ages before it suddenly dawned on me, hold on a minute, these are not two separate pieces of my work, actually. They're the same. It's the same thing. Because once people quit alcohol, often that's the first time they realize, oh wow, maybe I should care about what I eat. Okay, maybe I should care about what I put on my skin, because for the first time we can start to care about ourselves. So actually, the whole well-being piece was what fitted in so beautifully, really. And obviously, the coaching and the coach training came along after that.
Hmm, I love that. So, are there parts of your past with being, a semi-celebrity with being on tour with these different bands that informs who you are today?
Um, this is an interesting question. I mean, I guess everything we've done in our past, kind of brings us to where we are. I mean, I can only be who I am, really, and that is a bit of a funny mix because on the one hand I am I'm a coach. I run the sober club. I'm training people to be sober coaches. I'm doing this kind of um uh totally sobriety focused work, if you like, and well-being focused work. But at the same time, I still do radio shows, music shows, and I still, I do tours and things with regard to my book where I probably don't mention sobriety at all, unless somebody asks me, in which case that's fine, but they
Hmm.
might not, because I might just be spending the whole evening talking about, having worked in the music biz or whatever. And actually, I think it probably took me quite a long time before I was able to go, well, do you know what? This is just who I am. You can take the bits you want or not, but I'm not just going to be pigeonholed into one thing. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know about the States, but in the UK, we we love a pigeonhole. I mean, in the UK, we really love it if someone does one thing and then, for God's sake, stick to it and don't you dare try and do anything else. We love that. And I've never been able to do that. I've never been able to do one thing. I have to do everything. I have to have loads of variety and do loads of different things. And that, there are many people who've said to me, well, if you had a stuck to one thing, you're probably much more successful. Because if you just focused on one thing, the amount of people that used to say to me when my first book was a #1 Amazon bestseller, I was quite ahead of my time. I was one of the first people really talking about a lot of holistic stuff. And so many people used to say to me, get your own range of organic skincare.
Mhm.
Just talk about skincare. Just focus on the beauty in the skincare and have your own range, and you'll fly. And I used to think, no, I absolutely can't do that. Number one, I love other people's and I want to promote them. And number two, I can't talk about skincare unless I can also talk about what you're eating. Because if you're not eating right, it doesn't matter what skincare you use. And I can't really
Mhm.
talk about eating right unless I talk about what's going on in your head. So for me, this word holistic, it's essential. And if that means it's messy and that people end up getting a bit confused, well, you know what? So be it. Take the bits you want, leave the bits you don't.
I love that. And you talk about today still being imperfectly natural.
Yeah.
What are some secret indulgences that you still like that maybe don't fit within that perfectly natural?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I came up with that title, "Imperfectly Natural," because I think, we all have to do the bits we can when it works for us. It's hard to get everything right. Um, and yeah, I still have my indulgences. I mean, I love my coffee. There would be plenty of people that would argue that's not a good idea, but I don't care. I don't overdo it. I've got an off switch when it comes to coffee, thank God. So I love my coffee. I'm partial to a chocolate ginger biscuit or whatever. I'm absolutely I'm far from perfect. Um, but I kind of, I suppose it's more a case of I'm able to look at the bigger picture and work
Mhm.
out which are the bits that I can do that I know make sense. So, I only ever I wouldn't put anything toxic on my skin. And I don't need to, because I know all the non-toxic stuff. And often
Mhm.
I can make my own. So it's cheaper, it's easier, it's quicker. So why would I want to buy the chemicals, I'm a really big believer in making it easy for yourself. I'm in terms of the kind of eco stuff, the kind of the whole sustainability, eco-friendly thing. Again, I'm a really big believer that if you come at it from your own health and well-being first, you get to tick the eco box without trying. And unfortunately, over the years, what's happened is lots of people have done it the other way around. So they've jumped on the green bandwagon. It's like, oh, well, I'm going to buy that product because they're a really ethical company and they plant trees or whatever. And lots of companies will send me stuff and say, oh, will you review this and that? And it's become really interesting because over the years, what I've realized is you've got the companies who genuinely care about sustainability and being non-toxic. And then you've got the companies who just want to get that green tick. So they get the green tick because they've got biodegradable packaging and a plant-based dye on the writing. But when you actually open the product up, let's say it's washing powder, for example, it's chock full of chemicals, which will be terrible for you and the environment. But they don't care about that because they only care about what's on the outside of the box, So, yeah.
Kind of a
so
metaphor for what you were talking about earlier with our lives as sober people. It's like
it is.
we have these outside faces and these inside faces, and if we don't take care of the inside face first,
exactly that.
then it's all
Exactly
just
that.
manufactured.
Yeah. It is. It is.
Janey, I love the fact that you are just so human and so warm and real. So if people are listening and they think to themselves, I want to do some of this too. I want to start a podcast or I want to write a book. Like, what advice would you give to somebody just figuring it out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I mean, part of my work is in trying to inspire people to do this stuff. I mean, it's definitely going after your dreams. I think decide what it is you'd really like for you. What feels good, what feels exciting. And I think you've got to be able to visualize it. I'm a big believer in visualization. I love things like vision boards. And I think if you can't see it, you probably won't get it. So I don't buy into this kind of generic, oh, I want to be successful. That doesn't mean anything. I want to be an artist. Well, you've got to be specific. So what do you want to create? What do you want to, what would success look like? Exactly what is it? So I think you've really got to drill down into what the dream is. But that doesn't have to be the everything. It could be one dream. Let's start with one. That's fine. And by the way, in case there are people listening who are thinking, oh, well, that's all very well for her, but actually, I'm not creative and I don't want to write a book and I don't. That's fine too. I really believe that being purposeful, having a purpose, is different for everyone. And I always remember I interviewed Kyle Gray, the angel expert, and we had this whole conversation around purpose. And Kyle Gray said, sometimes your purpose is just to be happy. I mean, how cool is that? Imagine if that really was your intention, to be happy. Imagine the ripple effect of that, right? Because you'd be kind, you'd be spreading that happiness, wouldn't you? So, it's different for everybody. It really is. But one thing I do know is that many people, once they've quit alcohol, do start to get a sense of enthusiasm or a sense of a drive for something. And when they can finally recognize, okay, so I'm going to stop doing that putting it off thing, because we do that for years. Oh, I'll do it when the kids leave home. Oh, I'll do it when I'm 3 years sober. I'll do it. Just do it, literally just do it. I think if you set your intention, then what you focus on, you get more of. So I think, yeah, you have to do the pieces, but ultimately setting the intention is the first step.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly why we're having the Amplify Sober Voices conference, because we want people to feel as though they have a path forward, or they've started, but they want to learn how to grow. And maybe Amplify Sober Voices means you want to start shifting things at your workplace.
Yeah.
And maybe it means that, within your extended family, you want to have a bigger voice. Like amplifying your sober voice doesn't necessarily mean you have to do a TEDx talk, right? It could simply be, how can we have a bigger voice in this world about the amazing benefits that we all have?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly it. I think the more people spreading the message of positive sobriety, there will be more ripple effects. And it really doesn't matter how that's done, whether it's, to somebody as you're standing at the water cooler at work or whatever. or with a family member, or with a blog that you might write, or a social media post, or it really doesn't matter how you do it. It's just having that intention to be willing to just be authentic. Actually, there's something really powerful and magical about you just being you, the authentic you.
Mm,
For ages, we panic, but for most of us, we panic about what others will think. But here's the reality: people can actually think what they like. Some people will like you, they'll like your message, some people won't. But you can't argue with someone who is authentically them. You can't argue with that. You can not like them or not, or choose not to listen, but you can't argue with that authenticity. And years and years ago, I always remember this. It was a really powerful moment for me many, many years ago when I was working with Steve Wright in the afternoon. And we're talking probably 20 years ago now, so a long, long time ago. We had Gloria Gaynor come in on the show. Some of you will be old enough to remember Gloria Gaynor, disco artist, phenomenally successful disco queen, as it were. And she came in on the show, and obviously the vibe was that she was going to be talking about her new album and gigs and I Will Survive and on and on and on. But what she actually did was she came in and she took that opportunity, because it was a live show, to share the fact that she really wanted to talk about her Christian faith.
mm,
And it was really interesting, because I know for a fact there would be many people, I'd like 9 million listeners. There'll be many people listening to that who'll be thinking, well, not really interested in her Christian faith, or I'm not Christian, or, oh, shame she's not just talking about the disco stuff. There'll be many other people thinking, yeah, go you, girl. But one thing's for certain: whether you agreed or you didn't agree, you couldn't argue with her authenticity. It was so powerful. And it's something I've always really remembered. And I try and share this with, the sober coaches that I train. It's, don't worry about what you're going to share and what, are you going to say it right? There is no right. When you become authentic, when you know who you are and what you believe in, it's really powerful.
mm. Beautiful. So, Janey, what's next for you?
Well, I've got loads going on. I train people to be sober coaches, which I just love because it brings in absolutely everything that I do. It's all the holistic stuff. It's all the well-being. It's all the mindset stuff. It's the NLP. It's absolutely everything, as well as some of the business skills. So I really love doing that. It's fantastic, and getting to watch people kind of find their passion and enthusiasm is
Mm,
wonderful. But I'm still doing radio shows and speaking gigs, and yeah, it's all more of the same, I suppose.
fantastic. Well, I cannot tell you just how much I appreciate you coming on and sharing so many gems with us. I feel like I've revisited that part of me that found myself,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
brings me
it's just
joy to think
wonderful,
about
isn't it?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how can people connect with you and the Sober Club and your
Yeah,
podcast?
I'm very easy to find. It's at Janey Lee Grace on social media, thesoberclub.com, and the podcast is called Alcohol Free Life. But if you go to thesoberclub.com, you can find everything from there.
Fantastic. And we will have all of that on our show notes as well. And remember, we are hosting Amplify Sober Voices on January 15th, 2026 in Orlando. And for more information about that, go to amplifysobervoices.com.
I'm hoping to be there.
I'm hoping that you're going to be there too. All right, Janey, thank
Exciting.
you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye bye.